Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to take a hard look at the US map, and honestly, I promise you that by the end of this, you're going to realize the physical reality of our Earth is full of incredible quirks, massive extremes, and dynamic forces that just completely defy our standard expectations. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's start by testing your instincts. Picture the absolute easternmost point of the US. You're probably picturing a spot somewhere on the Atlantic coastline, right? Maybe somewhere up in Maine. And hey, that makes perfect logical sense if you're staring at a flat map on a wall. But here's the catch. The Earth isn't flat. And trying to draw straight lines on a spherical globe creates some truly mind-bending geographic realities. So, Chapter 1, Mind-Bending Map Illusions. Believe it or not, Alaska isn't just our westernmost state. No way. It's actually our easternmost state, too. Now, we all know Alaska stretches incredibly far out into the Pacific, but the Aleutian volcanic island chain extends so incredibly far that it actually crosses the 180th meridian. That's the imaginary line separating the western and eastern hemispheres. Because a tiny piece of those islands sits strictly west of that line, Alaska is geographically in the eastern hemisphere as well. So technically, yeah, that makes it the easternmost U.S. state. Wild, right? And if we bounce back over to the eastern seaboard, things get even weirder. Thanks to the Earth's curvature and the fact that Africa extends really far north, Maine is actually 800 miles closer to Africa than Florida is. I know, it feels completely wrong. Florida is the land of sunshine and palm trees, and Maine is all lobsters and snow. But Quoddy Head, Maine sits much farther east, and the northern bulk of Africa reaches way higher up than most of us realize. Earth's spherical geometry literally warps our expectations based purely on latitude. Which perfectly leads us to this hilarious historical quirk. When Colorado was established, its borders were legally meant to perfectly follow specific lines of latitude and longitude, basically creating a flawless rectangle. But, well, 19th century surveying tools were nowhere near as precise as the GPS tech we carry around in our pockets today. So what happened? Over time, as we've done more accurate surveys, those minor human errors were revealed. It turns out Colorado's borders aren't perfectly straight at all. They're actually full of hundreds of tiny, jagged deviations. Moving on to Chapter 2, Populations and Borders. Now here's a staggering reality for you. A whopping 80% of the U.S. population lives east of San Antonio, Texas. Seriously, if you draw a line straight up from there, only 20% of the entire U.S. population lives out west. This massive geographic divide exists mostly because the West is just packed with harsh, rugged deserts, to towering Rocky Mountains, and huge stretches of protected wilderness. While the East Coast has been densely developed since the colonial era, the sheer physical challenge of the Western landscape made large-scale settlement incredibly difficult. You can see this divide perfectly when you look at Wyoming. It's actually the least populous state in the entire country, sitting at just about 580,000 residents. The land there is just so wide open and rugged that it relies heavily on agriculture and ranching instead of, massive urban sprawl. In fact, cattle grazing is such a big deal there that Wyoming actually has roughly twice as many cattle as it does people. It's a beautiful reflection of that broader trend of low population density across the vast American West. But despite all these massive, rugged spaces, humans have actually managed to create some incredible harmony across the continent. Take the border between the United States and Canada. It stretches roughly 5,525 miles, making it the longest international boundary in the world. It crosses prairies, huge forests, mountains, and the Great Lakes. Yet in stark contrast to a lot of other borders around the globe, it remains entirely peaceful and completely unfortified. It's a massive boundary that facilitates incredible daily trade, cultural exchange, and absolutely vital shared environmental protections. Let's dive into Chapter 3, Massive Water Wonders. To really grasp the sheer scale of freshwater here, consider this. The Great Lakes, Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario, hold a staggering 21% of all the surface freshwater on Earth. We're talking about over 6 quadrillion gallons of water. These immense lakes were carved out by retreating glaciers at the end of the last ice age, and today they provide vital drinking water for over 40 million people across the U.S. and Canada. They are an absolute ecological treasure and a totally critical shipping corridor for the North American heartland. And then, of course, we have the awe-inspiring Mississippi River Basin. This vast watershed covers 1.2 million square miles and is absolutely essential for agriculture, transportation, and fresh water. But as you can imagine, managing a massive system that drains an astonishing 41% of the entire country comes with immense challenges. It faces severe environmental issues right now, specifically from agricultural runoff. Nutrients from farmlands literally wash into the river, flow thousands of miles south, and then empty into the Gulf of Mexico, feeding massive algae blooms that tragically choke off marine life. Now, what's truly mind-blowing here is that the physical Earth can completely override even these massive bodies of water. Back in late 1812, tectonic forces from the New Madrid earthquakes were so insanely powerful that the Earth literally dropped out from underneath the river, forcing the mighty Mississippi to flow upstream. The quakes caused massive ground subsidence, creating temporary waterfalls and sending the entire river rushing backward. Just a terrifying, incredible demonstration of tectonic power right in the middle of the continent, far away from any active coastal fault lines. And water can be just as destructive purely on its own. 2,000. That is the tragic number of ships lost at the treacherous Columbia River Bar up in the Pacific Northwest. Known globally as the Graveyard of the Pacific, this is the spot where the powerful Columbia River violently collides with the Pacific Ocean. Between the extreme waves, brutal stormy weather, dense fog, and rapidly shifting sandbars, the conditions are so perilous that even today, highly skilled local bar pilots have to physically board and steer commercial ships safely through this deadly entrance. Which brings us to Chapter 4, Extreme Landforms and Geology. When you hear the word rainforest, you probably immediately picture the sweltering tropical heat of the Amazon, right? Well, get this. The largest U.S. rainforest isn't tropical at all. It's the stunningly dense, chilly 16.7 million acre Tongass National Forest in southeast Alaska. As a temperate rainforest, it's this vital, old-growth ecosystem filled with towering Sitka spruce, wolves, bears, and salmon. But maybe more importantly, it plays a massive role in regulating our global climate by actively absorbing huge amounts of carbon dioxide. Over in California, the geography throws down an incredible extreme of elevation. Just 85 miles apart, literally a short drive, you'll find the highest and lowest points in the contiguous United States. Ancient tectonic collisions violently thrust Mount Whitney thousands of feet up into the sky. Meanwhile, just down the road, extreme stretching and thinning forces basically ripped the crust apart to form Badwater Basin in Death Valley, dropping the continent's absolute lowest point down to 282 feet below sea level. It is the perfect highlight of just how dramatically diverse the geology is there. Heading underground into Kentucky, we find a totally different kind of extreme. Kentucky's Mammoth Cave is actually the world's longest cave system, boasting a mind-boggling 400 miles of explored limestone passages. This whole subterranean world was shaped by the incredibly slow, patient action of groundwater, eroding the rock over millions of years. Today, it holds entire underground ecosystems, complete with totally unique species of bats and blind fish. It's a true marvel of natural geology, with a rich history of indigenous use that dates back thousands of years. This changing landscape brings us to another massive surprise. The U.S. is actually home to cold deserts. The Great Basin is a cold desert, meaning it's exceptionally dry but still experiences freezing winters and actual snowfall. However, because of varying precipitation patterns and rising temperatures driven by climate change, the boundaries of this already arid North American region are actively expanding, and that's creating some really tough new environmental challenges for local agriculture and water resources. We're going to end our geographic journey way out in the Pacific with a state that is physically growing right before our eyes. The Big Island of Hawaii is literally the only U.S. state actively expanding its footprint. While the continuous lava flows from the Kilauea volcano can obviously be super destructive to human settlements, it is literally building brand new, lush land. As the lava pours into the ocean, it cools, solidifies, and adds hundreds of acres of brand new black sand beaches and towering lava cliffs straight to the coastline. We have seen just how dynamic, extreme, and ever-changing these geographic forces really are. From rivers flowing in reverse, to expanding deserts, to literally growing islands. Geography isn't just a static map hanging on a wall. It is a living, breathing system. Which leaves us with one big question to ponder. How does the terrain beneath your own feet secretly dictate the way you live every single day? Think about it the next time you step outside.